weekend, I can taste it. We can make an impact, grab and then take it.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of best bets and props, where I go over all of my betting action for this weekend's UFC card, which is UFC Fight Night Jacksonville. We've got a main event here between two hard-hitting featherweights. The veteran Josh Emmett taking on the rising prospect, the undefeated Ilia Topuria. Awesome matchup here. Ilia Topuria been, largely grappling throughout his career so far, but he's got a lot of knockouts as well. A very well-rounded prospect at 26 years old. So we'll see how he competes against a high-level guy who just challenged for the interim title at featherweight in Josh Emmett. It's a very fun matchup. In fact, all 14 fights in this card could be really fun, whether they're high level or low level. A lot of these fights I don't see going to the scorecard. So we'll get into all of that. I do have 5 moneyline bets on this card, 4 favorites, 1 underdog. I've got a couple of time props, and I have a long list of violence props that I have put together in a violent progressive parlay. So I'll go over all of that, but first hit the like, hit the subscribe, and make sure that you check out the description for my affiliate sportsbook partner, Bet Online. One of my favorite sports books for mixed martial arts betting. Very good money lines, and they drop their props very fast in the week. So if you hit that link and sign up, your first deposit, you'll get a 50% welcome bonus. And if you use my link, it directly does help out this channel. So that would be great if you need a new sportsbook betting option. But also, I'm going to try to keep this video concise, just to the point with the betting and the recommended plays. So if you want details, check out my full card breakdown I dropped a few days ago, and also check out that live stream I did with Chronic Combat last night. We had some good information and just a fun back and forth with those guys on that video. So we can start off with the first money line I have on the night, which is in the very first fight on the prelims. It's a middleweight bout between Cody Brundage and Brundage Dumas. I'm taking Cody Brundage to win here, and I paid minus 130 over the weekend, and I put 1.3 units on him to win 1. Both of these guys, I'm not going to lie to you, they're very untrustworthy, fighters here. We've got Cody Brundage, who's got maybe a bit of a durability issue, and he's facing a very hard-hitting kickboxer in Brundage Dumas. But I think Cody Brundage has a very huge upside in his grappling ability here. He can out-wrestle and take Brundage Dumas down, as soon as he's able to, and this matchup would be smart. And we saw that's how Dumas lost his debuting fight. He is currently 0-1 in the UFC, and he got out-grappled by Josh Fremd, a training partner of Cody Brundage, and then, pretty much gassed out, got broken down mentally, and got tapped out in round 2 pretty quickly. So I think Cody Brundage could do that, but probably even faster, honestly, if he can take down Dumas, rain down ground and pound. He is a powerful striker, and he could probably open up a submission. That's how I see this one going down. But where the money line is at now for Cody Brundage, I'm not going to lie, I would not trust him at minus 180 or minus 190. I would look for Brundage inside the distance around that minus 110 number if you're on that side. So, it's probably, if you beat that line movement like I did, probably a good play. Otherwise, I would take either guy that you like here inside the distance. Even the under 1.5 at minus 165, I think I like, because even if Brundage wins, most of his wins, the large majority are under 1.5 rounds. So give me Brundage to win this fight. Like I said, minus 130 on the money line, 1.3 units to win here, most likely inside the distance. The next fight on the prelims I've got a bet on is on Jamall Emmers. And this is a featherweight bout. He's taking on the newcomer to the UFC, making his second walk to the cage, the Australian Jack Jenkins, who's a very good generalist, as is Jamall Emmers. But I think Emmers is just going to be a much larger athlete here, a lot slicker of a mover, more athletic, and a lot more high-level UFC caliber opponent, guys on his resume. So he's had a lot of really early fights in his career against top-level UFC athletes now, scoring wins over guys like Corey Sandhagen and things like that. He's a very good wrestler as his base, but his long striking weapons are pretty good as well. He's coming off of a nice victory as an underdog last time out, and now he's a sizable favorite. I ended up paying minus 193 on his money line. I put 2 units on Jamall Emmers here. I see a lot of people thinking that that's a little bit too wide, mostly citing his poor fight IQ. He has been known to not make the best decisions, but when he took on a kickboxer like Giga Chikadze, he probably could have wrestled earlier in that fight. When he was taking on a very good specialist in Pat Sabatini, he probably should not have gone to the mat with him to finish the fight and got caught up in that knee bar. So he's made some mistakes, but I think if he puts all of his skills together, we can forgive some of those losses against a generalist like Jack Jenkins. I think Emmers will be able to stuff takedowns, maybe land some of his own later in the fight, but largely just outstrike Jack Jenkins with his long striking weapons. So give me Jamal Emmers to win this one. Like I said, minus 193 for 2 units on his money line to win, just over 1 in return. So moving along, the prelims again is the underdog pick I have on this card, which is at lightweight between 2 guys that are very, very similar. Mateusz Rebecki taking on Loic Radzhabov. I am on the Radzhabov side of this one. Put just 1 unit on Radzhabov to win 1.3 because he's a plus 130 underdog against Mateusz Rebecki, about the minus 150 favorite. Both guys are wrestlers with power in their strikes. I think I lean towards Loic Radzhabov's power if they do end up nullifying the grappling and stay at striking range. I like his toughness, and I do like the fact that he can kind of pace himself into a fight, unlike Mateusz Rebecki, who tends to be very front-loaded, all gas, no brakes with this guy, and we saw that Rebecki did gas himself out in his last fight, but Loic Radzhabov, better resume. Again, he's got a lot more high-level competition on his record, fighting in the PFL at the highest level in the finale a couple of years in a row. In his last fight, he scored 11 takedowns out of like 20 attempts. So it showed his willingness to wrestle, unlike Rebecki, who was headhunting for the majority of his last fight. I think Radzhabov is just a step above Rebecki in a very similar skilled opponent here. So in a fight that I see being very 50-50, I'm going to lean on that plus 130 and just let the math do the work for me here. So 1 unit at plus 130 on Loic Radzhabov. I think he ends up doing a good mix of damage on the feet and just ending up looking better as this fight stretches out. So even if it goes to decision, I think Loic could pull that one off. Moving along even further on the prelims still, we've got Randy Brown taking on Wellington Turman, and this is my most confident pick of the entire card, probably. I mean, aside from like the big favorites, like maybe an Ilia Topuria or a Tatsuro Taira or somebody like that, I really do like Randy Brown's chances at welterweight against Wellington Turman, who's making his debut at welterweight in the UFC. This guy was a former middleweight and did not have a great career. He's lacking in durability in a lot of spots. Wellington Turman's a very good grappler, good submission fighter, but his defense on the feet is not very good. His volume on the feet, not very good. He's going to be facing a guy in Randy Brown who's down at welterweight, but Randy Brown's like 6'3" with a huge reach advantage over him. Still young at 32 years old. Just a good mover in all. And he's got solid grappling as well, so he can probably stay safe even if he's put in harm's way in some sort of grappling position here. So unless Wellington Turman gets some submission, unless he can backpack Randy Brown, I don't see him winning a decision here. I would see Randy Brown either winning this by knockout and exposing that durability issue from Turman, or winning a decision based on points and being able to just have better cardio in this matchup too. That's something I've noticed I don't like about Turman. His cardio doesn't seem to hold up all that well. So Randy Brown, I took him at minus, what did I get to be here? Minus 216, I want to say. Yeah, minus 216 in the money line. 3 units on Randy Brown. Really loading up on him here, paying some chalk, but I just think he's got a lot of advantages in this matchup. So we've gone over 4 of the money lines. The 5th one, I do have Neil Magny defeating Phil Rowe. And similar to the Loic Radzhabov Mateusz Rebecki fight, these guys match up very well. They're only 3 years apart in age, the exact same height at 6'3" at welterweight, and an 80-inch reach for both of them. So it's a very rare situation where we've got such physical gifts at 170 for these guys. But the experience largely goes in the favor of Neil Magny. He's got the most wins by decision in the league. He's got the most wins at welterweight. He's got the most time at welterweight in the cage against really high-level guys. And the weakness for Neil Magny on his record has been guys that can really wrestle well and then have a good submission game on top of it. He's coming off of that loss by round 1 arm triangle against a good grappler and wrestler in Gilbert Burns. But aside from opponents like that, or RDA, or Michael Chiesa, Neil Magny has got a very good cage wrestling game, good clinch weapons, good distance striking and range management. And he's been notoriously durable, even though he has lately been slipping up in a few spots, getting stung by some big strikes from guys like Max Griffin or guys like D-Rod. But he's come back and wound up victorious in those matchups. So against a guy like Phil Rowe, who's fighting low-level guys so far in the UFC. He is on a 3-fight winning streak, all by knockout. But these are guys like Jason Witt, who does not have good durability. Guys like Orion Koski, who tends to gas out later in the fight. And he's coming off of a knockout win in round 3 over Nico Price, a guy who also eats a lot of punches in his bouts. So all of these victories have not only that they're knockouts in common, but they've been comeback victories. Usually in round 1, Philip Rowe drops that round either by getting out-wrestled or by getting stung up on the feet. So I just think Neil Magny's a much better mover as well with his striking. Philip Rowe is a guy who's largely a stationary target, and with his long striking advantages, he's letting guys like Jason Witt or Orion Koski just get sniped off and picked off at range. That option will not be available against Neil Magny. So, yeah, give me Neil Magny. I've got 2 units on him at, what did I pay here? Minus 145, on his money line. 2 units on Neil Magny. So that wraps up the 5 money lines. Like I said, I do have Cody Brundage, Jamal Emmers, Loic Radzhabov, the underdog, Randy Brown, and Neil Magny as those 4 favorites and 1 underdog for the money line section. Now, moving into the prop side of things, I've got 2 over 1.5 round props here, a half unit on each. So starting off with the main event itself, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria to go over 1.5 rounds. This is at minus 110 on Bovada and on DraftKings. I took it on Bovada, just a half of a unit on that prop. Again, over 1.5 at the main event. I just think it's going to be Ilia Topuria playing Matador, trying to avoid the heavy strikes when Josh Emmett is the most powerful in the fight. He's going to be rushing forward, Josh Emmett, with big looping hooks, overhands, uppercuts, things that Josh Emmett has scored a lot of knockdowns and knockouts with in the past. He's very aggressive and will be stalking Topuria, trying to cut off the cage. So I think if Ilia Topuria can either duck under those shots and look for the takedown early, probably the best plan, or if he just stays defensively sound, lets Josh Emmett swing at air for round 1, and halfway through round 2, he can start employing his game plan when the danger is a little bit subdued. So that's kind of my angle there, but either guy could end the fight in a hurry here, so I'm not investing too much in this, but I do like the prop. A lot of featherweight fights do end up sneaking towards the over lately, at least this year so far. So over 1.5, minus 110, I think that's a fair price. Just have a half of a unit on that. But I do have another over 1.5 round prop, and that is in the middleweight bout between Brendan Allen and Bruno Silva. Kind of a similar situation here, where I think Brendan Allen will be the guy, of course, the grappler, seeking to take this fight to the mat, seeking to use his wrestling and his submission game to, just that's the highest fight IQ play, right? Take Bruno Silva, the hard-hitting kickboxer, the knockout artist, take him off of his feet. Brendan Allen, not always quick to do that. Sometimes he does play with his food a bit. He does test his improving striking against guys. That would not be smart against a guy like Bruno Silva. But again, if he can make Bruno Silva swing at air, just get out of the way of those big looping strikes, he could duck under, start wrestling, or he could just stay safe and let Bruno wear himself out in round 1. So the over 1.5 in that middleweight fight, a little bit more risky in my opinion than the featherweight fight we talked about, but it's at minus 150 for Brendan Allen. Bruno Silva goes over 1.5. So that's on DraftKings, and that's where I got that for half of a unit. Again, not much of an investment in these over 1.5s. I'm not much of a time prop player myself. I do like just hitting straight money lines, but these are ones that stuck out off the page to me. So those are the ones I have. The rest of the props I like on this card are all violence props. It's spots where I think that the fight is very unlikely to go to the scorecards, and I'm taking a stance on who I think wins the fight and how. Now, you can look at these next 5 props as individual ones. I'll list the odds for each of these props, but myself, I'm going to be a little bit risky, have some degenerate fun here, and make a prop parlay out of these violent spots. So it's going to be a 2-leg parlay, adding on a third prop to make a 3-leg parlay, adding on a fourth, and adding on a 5th leg individually. So I'll write on the screen what I mean, what the odds are, and what the combined parlay odds are going to be. But overall, I'm not investing much. I'm kicking it off with a 2-leg parlay for just half of a unit at plus 412 odds. It's a 2-legger between Trevor Peek to win and to win under 1.5 rounds. That's plus 150. Combined with Justin Tafa to win by knockout and under 1.5 rounds. That is at plus 105. So combined parlay odds for the first 2-leg set is plus 412. I put half a unit on there to win just over 2 if that cashes. So that's how we're starting this one off. Trevor Peek and Justin Tafa, both powerful strikers and guys that really don't leave a lot of energy left in their tank to even go past 7.5 minutes anyways. So I think if either of them win, I think it's going to be under 1.5 rounds. So that's how I'm starting this one off, putting it all on the line early. But I'm adding on a third leg to this parlay. The next part is going to be Gabriel Santos to defeat David Onama in either round 2 or round 3. And this is off the premise that I think Gabriel Santos is, just a lot more technically advanced on the feet and especially in the grappling on the mat. And Gabriel Santos is a guy who can expose David Onama's gas tank. Onama is a guy who has 100% finish rate in all of his wins. And he's a guy who usually does slow down after round 1. So if he's not getting that early knockout, Onama, I think, is in big risk of getting finished in rounds 2 or rounds 3. So Santos to win in either of those 2 rounds is at plus 300. If you combine that with the other 2 legs, we now have a 3-leg parlay at plus 1950. I put just 0.1 unit on that 3-legger. Adding on the 4th leg of the progressive parlay, I've got Tatsuro Taira to win inside the distance. That's plus 100 on its own. I'm putting 0.1 units on now this 4-leg parlay, which will be plus 4,000 combined parlay odds. Tatsuro Taira, very talented grappler. He's going to have a very good advantage on the mat over Clayton Rodriguez. And I think if he does get it to the mat, I think it's a very high likely chance that he's going to get the hooks in and set up a submission the way he's done in a couple of his UFC fights so far. So that's the 4th leg of this thing, 0.1 units on that. And then the 5th leg is going to be Cody Brundage to win inside the distance at minus 115 over Brundage Dumas. That is just 0.05 units, just $5 on this one now, because now this 5-leg, the entire progressive violent parlay is now plus 75.65. So if you put $5 on that, what's 5 times 75? We're looking at $375 or so, a little bit over $375 if that 5-legger cashes. Along with all of the other parlays cashing, that will be probably upwards of $1,000 or so. So, not a bad way to look at this one. I put it in order of confidence. I think Trevor Peek and Justin Tafa have very good opponents that they could knock out. Moving on to Gabriel Santos, I think he's 3rd likely to get a finish here. Tatsuro Taira, a little bit higher level of a competition in Clayton Rodriguez, so that one might be tougher. And then Cody Brundage against Brundage Dumas. Just a total untrustworthy fight, but that's why that's the last leg of the progressive parlay. So as long as the Peak one hits, the Tafa one hits, we'll be profitable by a large margin here. So just a little bit of action there, 0.5 units for the top leg, and then 0.1 unit, 0.05, just $5 on that last part. So I wrote it out on the screen so it makes a little bit more sense. But again, you don't have to parlay these. You can look at all of these individual props and just pick the one that you agree with. And I think they're all very good props. So that is all of my betting action for this weekend's card at UFC Jacksonville. We've got Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria at featherweight. Leave a comment down below with your favorite props and bets for this card. If you agree with my picks, disagree with my picks, I would love to know why in the comments. Hit the subscribe. Let's keep this channel growing. Good luck on all of your betting action, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Cheers.